Hello and welcome to Asia's Business. I'm Haslinda Amin. Our guest today is Tan Sri Francis Yeoh of YTL, a company whose business interests include construction, water, power, and property. He tells us how he's tapping Southeast Asia to further expand his empire. Tan Sri Francis Yeoh, welcome to Asia's Business. Let's talk about your growth story. Such an expanding company, $4.7 billion in your kitty right now. What are your acquisition plans? You've talked about it before.
Yeah, still waiting. Since 2008, waiting for the low-hanging fruits. It's coming lower. It's coming lower. I had a nibble at the Stansted Airport. I didn't win that. Off the mark by 300 million pounds. But I'm quite sure the winner has regretted that because Ryanair has decided to take 1 million flights out a year or 1 million passengers per year. So that will affect their bottom line, I think.
But you talked about getting acquisitions within Asia. You said that there were attractive assets. What's happened to those plans?
Different horses for different causes. In Asia, the non-regulated assets, because they don't have a regulatory framework like Britain or Singapore or Australia to welcome my forte, our businesses with long-term footprints and templates and concessions in water or electricity. They don't have that yet. Somewhere along the way, I hope they will bring along. But in the consumer side, in Asia, in cement, in the shopping centers and all of that, yeah, we're investing quite heavily in Asia. Real estate, that's an easy no-brainer.
You said before that it's a no-brainer to buy assets in Asia because of the weak currencies.
Yes.
The situation has changed now. Compared to the US dollar, Asian currencies have escalated.
Yes, a little bit.
Do Asian assets make sense?
Not as much as it should, but it will. I mean, over the long term, it will. You look at our investments in Singapore in 2008, we bought over Star Global REIT, where you are housed, where we are having this interview. And we had a return almost 100%. We paid something like $300 million US. Is returned 700 million US. The units valued and also the dividends that we got. So, and the currency appreciated. So yes, if you bet on Asia real estate, it's quite a no-brainer because you just have to be confident and be assured of the future, the bright future of Asia's economic sustainability.
But real estate is expensive in this part of the world. The likes of Hong Kong, the likes of Singapore, prices are at record highs.
Yeah, but these are temporary trends. When they are record highs, it gives you an opportunity to buy something else. When people are withdrawing from the market, you get in. It's same here in Sentosa. When we bought that piece of land in Sentosa, we were only paying $400 per square foot per plot ratio. It went as high as 1,009, and of course, now it has to come down a bit. So yeah, when there are opportunities like that, as long as you bet on the long-term future of Asia in real estate, it won't go wrong. Secondly is the quantitative easing of global currencies. I mean, where would currencies go to? Where would they flow to the normal path through properties? I mean, where else can it flow to? Because they can't go to the regulated assets like water and power and all that yet, because the regulatory framework does not allow this kind of, although big chunks of money, but they don't have the framework to allow that kind of investment yet.
But having said that, can record prices continue?
Yeah.
Talks of bubbles already.
Yeah, it's all relative. Prices are all relative. I think in terms of Singapore, China, yes, they need to curb a bit because prices are getting a little bit too toppish. But like all things, it comes down and then the different players comes in, and then there's another layer of buyers and a layer of entrepreneurs. At least it's a healthy correction.
How about Malaysia? Given the curbs on property prices introduced by the government in Singapore as well as Hong Kong, do you see Malaysia benefiting from all of that?
We have not actually had this inflationary impact on our properties. We wish we had. we never had this incredible run on the properties, right? Because in the past we had got not very good policies on properties. We didn't welcome foreign investments in properties very much. We got rid of all of that. Second homes, we welcome second homes now. Is working. But look at the reality. The price of a prime property in Kuala Lumpur is 600% less than that of prime property in Singapore. So we're a long way off. So I hope something will happen to make the property catch up.
What would it take? What would it take for prices to catch up?
The fast train project from KL to Singapore. Obviously, there will be one obvious project that will do that. It's proven that real estate do come up. Especially this project has got two components. One is a fast train that goes to Singapore 1.5 hours, and the other is 2 hours going through Melaka, Batu Pahat, and some towns. The real estate, including Johor Bahru, all these corridors, the real estate will move up.
Tan Sri, you're known for your vision. You're always ahead of the curve, and that has to do with the rail link between Singapore and KL as well. You mooted the idea 12 years ago, and finally, it's getting materialized. Your views on how realistic this project is?
I think this project is very important for both economies and both countries. The rapprochement between KL and Singapore is very important because it's not just KL and Singapore. It will, of course, change the complexity of how people work, how people live. That will all be positive for both. Now, Singapore then has a hinterland, like Hong Kong has hinterland, and China that's very friendly. And of course, with Singapore's strength, they can also prosper their neighbor, and they'll prosper themselves. More than that, if KL and Singapore is 11 to whole of Southeast Asia's 600 million market, setting up the regulatory framework, setting up this kind of thinking, I think that's exciting from every area, from telecommunications, from banking, to water, to power. Every Southeast Asian should be allowed to invest in each other's territory without economic or regulatory nationalism, which tends to creep in. In Europe, for example, they don't have a framework, unfortunately, to allow so much money in the world to invest. Right? Britain has, but not Europe yet. And they are stuck in this quagmire. And we must learn from this lesson. Southeast Asia, rich as we are, progressive as we are, we must set regulatory framework when we are not in trouble to welcome investments. There are plenty of money. Just don't get stuck only in the capital market side, because that money is hot money. It always goes in and out to chase the fastest return in the shortest time. But if you want serious bettors, serious world players on water, electricity, they are available. They will all invest in Asia or Southeast Asia. This is where I think the regulatory framework, positive regulatory framework, should be set up now when we have time.
Do you think it's going to be a game changer when the project is completed by 2020? How so?
Very much so. If you look at the dynamic, how people work in the experiences of fast trains globally, they all have positive effect. I have not read any negatives on the way people are using the fast train. Most people get a positive effect out of this. And the mindset. The mindset will be the economy is not a zero-sum game anymore. There's less room for economic nationalism. And that, I said, it's very well for Southeast Asia's future if Singapore and KL can lead the way to show how this can be done. Then we can extend it to Bangkok one day, and then to China, and then to India, you know.
China has been asked to invest in this project. How soon can we see China's involvement?
We have already a double track up north from KL to Ipoh. That's on the way already. That's a more longish term, not as fast a train. But what's the difference? At the end of the day, if China can put a fast train, 370 kilometers an hour from Beijing to Guangdong, what's the difference? I mean, geographically, the barrier is not in the ability to build. The barrier is the political barriers and the mindset of the ASEAN and the Chinese players. And after all, now there's ASEAN plus 3. India, China are all part of this process. So I hope they seriously set up a regulatory framework and put a lot of money to invest where we can now.
Tan Sri, hang on to that thought. This is Asia's Business. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We talked about the rail link between Singapore and KL. How do you see YTL getting involved in this project?
YTL has been involved through Malaysia's experience setting out a regulatory framework in Malaysia to put forth the first independent power. Now we've been able to invest in Singapore. We own a third of Singapore's electricity. We are involved in Australia, South Australia's whole national grid. We own that. So there are territories that allow intellectual capital and our capital money to be expanded, to be used for such purposes. And not many other territories does that. And I like to see the whole of Asia, India, China, Southeast Asia open up. And see, why is that? I'm one of the best water companies, best exporter, and that's well known. But I cannot use this expertise to produce services in China or India or Southeast Asia for the moment, because the regulatory framework here is not friendly to that kind of long-term thinking. But if we look at Britain, we have a 50-year bond. The bond market itself, the whole capital market gains from this long-term investment, long-term thinking. So I love the whole of Southeast Asia to open up in this area, like transportation, water, services, communications. Put a fair, regulatory, transparent network for them, bid all these assets transparently, right? So get the world's best competitors, get the world's best expertise, the best money. Go beyond the short-term portfolio investment in their capital markets of the stock market. Go beyond that. Allow them to invest in infrastructure. That will be better and more stable for both Asia and the world.
That is ideal. But in terms of political will, how much political will is there among governments here to address the regulatory framework that you mentioned?
Well, Singapore is way ahead of the curve. Malaysia, we are moving ahead of the curve now. I think most people are wanting to do that. They just need to see some examples where it works. I think Singapore is not a zero-sum game to let a Malaysian invest in their one-third of their power. Electricity prices are under pressure now. They're coming down. It's good for the consumers. I hire Singaporeans, and more Singaporeans, the smartest of them. I give them good bonuses, good pay, and when I make a little money, I pay my taxes. I'm not going to take up my power plant and run away. That is the economic nationalism that's not been actually talked about, but hidden behind. If you look at WTO, World Trade, the Doha rounds, is stuck behind the walls of nationalism. And I think it's dangerous. It's dangerous. I mean, we already have problems in fiscal cliff in the US and trying to solve now with sequester problems, and Europe is still in the doldrums. And Asia is now going to do well, but if they are not going to learn these lessons, right? When are we ever going to do it? I mean, it's going to haunt us. 10 years from now, the population will get older. They're not going to get younger, right? This is the most robust period where the population profile is correct. The people are very internationalist. Internet is available. People are now thinking aloud and forcing their strength. Of course, the sovereignty has shifted to the voters and the buyers and the consumers today by the internet. So you look at all these Facebooks and all this, when it's used for economic purposes, these are more sustainable companies today, actually giving the people today, consumers today, the power, what they want. These companies survive, and some of them have done so well. Look at the market caps of Google and some of these internet companies. They are telling you a big, loud story, right? Change will come to you, force it on you unless or you want to foster this change.
You talk about change, you talk about transformation within the ASEAN region. One big change we're seeing lies in the relationship between Singapore and Malaysia, hence the high-speed trade link which we're seeing right now.
Right.
What are your thoughts on warming relations between the two nations?
I love it because these are more younger generation of leaders that understand today voters and consumers do not like to be talked down. They don't have the assumption the government knows everything. The government owns up to that say they don't know everything now because kids are getting smarter. They have more choice now because of the tools that they have. So they are thinking aloud of what they want, but not necessarily the consumers and the voters know exactly what they want. So there's still room for leadership, wise leadership, to manage the expectations and the reality on the ground. But today, of course, all the consumers and voters are expecting governments to be more flexible and companies to be more flexible. I am a president of a country of 12 million customers. I don't have the luxury of 5 years to vote for me. Every morning when I wake up, they vote with their pockets for me. If I don't do well, I'll be on the Facebook. If my services delay, I'll be on the Facebook. If my restaurants don't do well, or all my water services, I'll be on the Facebook, and probably I'll be under the business model will be under threat. Everybody must understand that's the reality today. Politics or business, welcome it, manage it, and then use this power. Everyone that have ever used technology in history has won the game and led the world to be a better place. But I think the world is caught not keeping up with technology today. A bit more monopolistic tendencies. Governments think they can still get away with certain of these monopolistic cozy relationship with these monopolistic players. But this is almost over, this game.
Given the warming relations between Singapore and Malaysia, do you see can you envision Malaysia being a manufacturing base for Singapore, for instance?
Well, absolutely. I think it already is. Many investors in Singapore has overflowed to Johor Bahru and then beyond to Malacca and Penang and all these areas. I think geography, the death of geography has arrived, only we don't know it in technology today, right? The politicians may not understand that, but actually the death of geography is there. You just have to use a lot of political wisdom to say, okay, if there's a death of geography, which works better for each other's economy? And let's integrate it in some way. So there's an umbilical cord to the goodness for each other. So instead of looking at each other as competitors. In the past, yes, different economies ran at different pace in ASEAN. But I think, again, with the internet and with tools and the economy, people are catching up quite fast, quite coming up to the same level of understanding. The rest are political systems. So the economy, the technology and the tools are ready to move. But it's up to the politicians to say, okay, I recognize that, let's move now. Especially in ASEAN. 600 million market is a very strong market of very high consumers and good earners and good savers. 600 million. India is another 1 billion, and China. If we get this right, we will actually have a very sustainable global participation of the best practices, of the best technologies in the world coming to Asia. And Asia being able to consume will help the Western world a lot. Where they are caught today is the consumption in their own economies are not that robust.
Tan Sri, we're going for a short break. This is Asia's Business. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Tan Sri, looking at Malaysia's economy, it is on the cusp of change. It's been talking about an economic transformation. Where in that journey is it now?
It's not only talking, it's walking the economic transformation. Now that's what's so great about this Najib's government. He's got an economic minister, Idris Jalla, that actually articulates the country's vision, what this Prime Minister wants to do, what he wants to transform, both the economic side and also the political side. And he debates it with all these labs. I think it's trained by Shell those days to do these things. So actually it caught the public by surprise because he already know what is it that they were asking about. In those days, without this process, most people just made a decision and then that's it, whether you like it or not. Probably the government was ahead of the curve and took a very courageous step of moving a project ahead without debates. But today, Najib uses this method and process of talking to the people, what project they want, why, the economic impacts, etc. And that's very good. The first thing that Najib came when he wants to transform the economy was, you know how refreshing it is? The minister comes out and said, we'll be bankrupt by 2019 if we go on the way we are. You look at Europe, you look at everybody, we just cannot afford to borrow to sustain our lifestyles and keep on subsidizing. So we got to do something about it. So let's do something about it. We need so many billion a year for the private sector to invest. Wow, it's just a breath of fresh air, right? This is something truthful and we have to deal with it. So everybody starts to put on that thinking cap. And if the government is serious, well, what can we do? That's how the private sector was brought back. Today you look at Malaysia. Najib has brought back successful people like me to compete my 4G against the 3G and the telcos, etc. It's quite unheard of. And budget airlines, Air Asia, and now Malindo, Indonesia, coming to use KLIA2 as a hub.
So it's a more competitive environment for
I mean,
businesses.
he's walking the transformation. I mean, that's what is refreshing about his government. He's walking the transformation, not just talking about it. And already the last 3 years, the impact has been quite tremendous. I mean, 5% is not a lot of growth, but it is commendable in the context of global glaciatic growth.
Malaysians go to the polls very soon. As a businessman, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for stability all the time and certainty.
Isn't there already stability and certainty right now?
Yes, there are stability and certainty as long as everybody transparently have a democratic process and vote whoever they want, and whatever that is. If a government is not an immature government that will prosecute people, that kind of thing, where you find in immature governments this terrible, what do you call that? Revenge on previous government type of thing. I think there's no time for that. I mean, the world must learn today from Europe and America, the Western world, and from Japan. There's no time, right, to deal with economic issues that are flooding, and it's like a tsunami. And the difference is this: with the social impact on this technology, the social change with Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of thing, what actually happens is that it triggers events simultaneously and all the problem at the same time. So now you literally have to multi-solve a problem every day simultaneously. You don't have the luxury to solve one at a time before. You don't have, okay, let's fix this, and next month let's fix that, and 6 months let's fix that. All problems will hit you today. And if you are a government and you don't transform your thinking, politically, and your economy to be flexible for that, you will be wiped out. I mean, you will actually have a lot of problem coping with what's going on in the world. Europe is already struggling to cope with that.
Voters are definitely speaking up. Yeah. At the last election, UMNO lost its 2/3 majority. What are your thoughts if the opposition were to form the government?
I'm not going to speculate on that, but I only like to see something very interesting. The last time the government lost, it was very interesting. A lot of bloggers became members of parliament. This time the Prime Minister has got 1 million people on his Facebook. I think that's an improvement in understanding technology, as Obama understood when he came in to be the first African-American president using technology, and McCain didn't know how to use the internet. So I think today, 4 years later, I think we have a government that's much more proactive in understanding the opposition through technology. So I don't think there'll be much of a shock like before. So I hope the election will be peaceful and the results will be good for the economic program to be sustainable.
Your views on the global economy, because you have businesses just about everywhere in the UK and China, here in the Lion City as well. Your thoughts on where the global economy is headed?
The global economy is now depending on Asia to find a solution. And Asia can find that solution. Asia's the population, intelligent population, hardworking population, savers, all the virtues of its people. I think they can find a solution, but I want them to find sustainable solution, not make the same mistakes as in the past. We were spared the wrath of 2008 a bit, because by default in 1997 we had a crisis, so we learned to be prudent, right, by default. Now, by design, we have to prevent European problem within ASEAN in the future. Let's not forget, when we prosper, to learn what to do. We have to set up very smart, positive regulatory framework to welcome investments in infrastructure, which is very much needed in the whole of Asia and Southeast Asia. Trillions, in the trillions, and that's what people need. People want technology, internet at very low prices. People want water, quality water at very low prices. People want roads, transport at very low prices. They want everything at reasonable price that they can afford. We can fix them. The world can fix them. This is Asia's turn to fix them.
Tan Sri Francis Yeoh, thank you so much for your insights today. This has been Asia's Business. Thank you so much for your company.